First of all, thank you for coming. For those of you who might not know me, I'm David Mattingly. I'm the mayor of Benton. The purpose of having this town hall meeting is because over the last year or two, both I as well as staff have received questions, concerns that have been voiced by residents, as well as a few businesses, about their ability to retain an effective, we'll call it that, an effective and consistent signal, most specifically for IT, internet services. So as those discussions and those concerns were voiced, staff, we talked about this a number of times over the last few months, decided the best way to deal with this is because the folks who have to put on the service are the ones that really need to know the concerns. And I guess the best way I can compare this to issues in our city is to say that when you grow 40% in 10 years, regardless of what it might be, and we can talk about public utilities, which Benton owns its own, there is a significant demand to keep up with that growth curve in the form of sewer, water, electricity, and so on. And the same thing happens with other services that the city works with, companies such as AT&T, Fidelity, CenterPoint, etc. And they have to struggle to keep up with those same demands of growing requirement for capacity. And how do you do that? Basically, it always comes down to something that says, how do you invest and where do you get the infrastructure money to do that? So in my discussions with them, there's been no question that I'm concerned, that staff's concerned, and it comes down to, can we improve services, and if so, how do we do that? And are you going to be able to make the investment in our city as we grow, even though I know they have other communities that are growing just as fast and demanding just as much. So it's a never-ending battle to try to keep up with all those needs. So having said that, let me just give you a quick format. Ronnie Dedman, who is here representing AT&T, will introduce his team. We've asked each of them to have approximately 5 minutes to present where they are and possibly where they're going. Jim Miller is here with the Fidelity team to also do the same thing. Windstream was invited to come, even though they only have basically commercial services, and they had indicated they were going to try to be here, but I don't see them, so we're going to go on. So with that, I will introduce Mr. Ronald Dedman, who is with AT&T, the Office of the President, to make their 5-minute presentation.
He was really enforcing that 5-minute presentation, I think. This morning when I was walking on my treadmill thinking about what I would say tonight, I had put together a PowerPoint presentation. And 20 minutes later, after going through that presentation, I realized that I needed to say it all in about 5 minutes. So Lamont must have known that it was going to take me that long because the machine over there is broke, and I can't do my PowerPoint presentation this evening. So I'll just have to wing it. With me tonight, I've got Kevin and Troy. These guys here are the experts. They are these two guys, raise your hand, are the guys that are on the ground and know how to make all this stuff work. So thank you guys for being with me tonight. I thought I would run through just some notes real quick to kind of let you know how our company got to where we are today. A lot has happened in the telecommunications industry since the initial 1934 Telecommunications Act, and then another act that was updated in 1996. And now we are where we are in terms of communicating how we communicate. Years ago, you used to communicate point to point. You would pick up your phone, call your mother or whomever, and you would communicate with that person at that point. But today, we communicate with and you communicate with anyone, anywhere, pretty much. Consumers are quickly, and you all probably know this, are ditching, I don't know how else to say it, their landlines. Today in America, about 1 out of 3 homes don't have a home phone anymore. They have just gotten rid of their home phones. Another 1/3 of the households have switched to VoIP, or voice over the internet protocol, leaving about 1/3 of the citizens in the United States that still have a landline at home. About 500,000 people every month get rid of their home phones. So my point here is to let you know that the way we communicate is changing, and it's continuing to change. About 73% of the homes no longer have a home phone. And to just sort of bring that close to home for you, in 2000, AT&T had 1 million access lines here in the state of Arkansas. That's, you had a phone in your house, or maybe 2 phones in your house. So we had over 1 million landlines, access lines in 2000. At the end of 2013, we're down to about 340,000 access lines that still remain in Arkansas. I mentioned that to just let you know that the way you all communicate has changed, and it will continue to change. You think about how, as an example, how farmers used to communicate. They'd pick up their phones and they would order their seeds, and then they would go plant. Well, today they pick up their smartphone or their device, and they start their irrigation system out in the field. Or they pick up their device and they start their tractor and drive that tractor down the middle of the field with nobody on it from that device. So the way we communicate is changing. Now, to meet the growing demand of change, AT&T since 2010 in this country has invested over 98 billion, let me get that right with a B, $98 billion in our network since 2008. That's more than any other public company in the United States. To bring that a little bit closer to home, from 2010 to 2013 in Arkansas, AT&T has invested over $800 million in the state of Arkansas. So we're going to bring it a little bit closer. And here in Central Arkansas, which includes Benton, we've invested over $275 million in our network, okay? As we think about moving forward and what our plans are, number one, we've made substantial investments here in Central Arkansas and in Benton in our UVerse internet and our video product, UVerse. We've made those investments in Benton. We will continue to make those investments here in Benton. On the wireless side, we have blanketed your city with our 4G LTE service, so that in most places you've got great service. In some places you have good service. And also as another option for you in terms of broadband, with 4G LTE, that gives you that option as well. Tonight I wanted to say that AT&T has made a commitment to this state, to Central Arkansas, and to Benton. We'll continue to honor that commitment. I wish I could stand here and tell you that we're going to offer services in this neighborhood or that neighborhood or down the street there, but I'm just not allowed to be that specific in what I tell you all. But just understand that we are committed, strongly committed, to continuing to roll out our broadband services, both UVerse and also with our mobile broadband. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronnie. If anyone has specific questions regarding AT&T or any of your services. We'll take questions as soon as we get through with allowing Jim Miller from Fidelity to also make his opening presentation. Jim?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mattingly, Lamont, and council members that have shown up this evening. I'd like to introduce our team. I have Holly Bryant. She's business sales, over commercial business sales for Fidelity Communications, and I have Dan Williams. Raise your hand. I want to thank those guys for showing up. He's the local business salesman here this evening. Fidelity, we've acquired the old Charter and Cobridge systems in January 2012. We purchased those systems, and since then, we've invested heavily into the community. We've spent $7 million within the city of Benton to improve our infrastructure network. We've increased redundancy within the city of Benton to give us alternative routes in and out of the city to improve reliability within the city as well. Our goal, is to provide competition in Benton and improve bandwidth availability and bundled savings as well for the community of Benton. So we have a lot of exciting things going on with Fidelity. We're a very fast internet provider. Today we offer across our HFC, that's hybrid fiber coaxial network. We offer 50 meg over 3. We're currently beta testing and going to roll out to the market, to the city of Benton, 100 over 5 later this year across our HFC infrastructure. We're also in the process of looking at some fiber to the home, fiber to the business rollouts, and with that product, we're going to offer one gigabyte that's 1,000 megs to the residents. So we do have a lot of exciting plans. We have a local office. We believe in the city of Benton. We invest locally. We hire locally. Just in Benton alone, we've added 4 technical employees that live within the city, that work in the city. We've added 23 call center agents. We've stopped outsourcing our call center operations, brought that in-house, and hired an additional 23 staff. So yeah, we're heavily committed to the community of Benton and want to be your service of choice provider. So, I'd like to sit down and maybe give specifics with where we're building, but yeah, we've actually looked at every unserved area, and when I say unserved, what we'll look at are areas that aren't served by DSL or higher speed. So yeah, we have looked at every unbuilt neighborhood within the city limits of Benton, and they're currently running numbers, and will build quite a few before the end of the year. So. With that said, we offer traditional bundled savings where you can, for those of you who still have a home phone, we offer home phone service, internet, and digital video services. So we have great bundled savings, non-promotional offers that start out around $105, and we can serve an 8 meg house, 16, 50. Eventually we'll be able to serve 100, and in our fiber to the home, we will push 1 gig to the residents. So, again, a lot of things happening with Fidelity. Anyway, again, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but we do look forward to serving you, and hope that we will become the provider of choice within the city. And I want to thank you for your time, and open for questions whenever y'all are ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, I'll make a couple of comments and then we'll open it for anyone who has questions. Both of these companies, as well as a few other companies, Windstream being one, have come whenever we've asked them to sit with staff. We've had a lot of discussions. And all I can say in summary of all that activity over these last 8, 9, 10 months is there is certain areas in our community that I have specifically, as well as staff, talked with these folks and others about service deficiency, service issues, signal issues, and so on. We've even gotten down to the point where we knew because of a phone call and a concern, how difficult it was for either that resident who works from home or that small business and the struggle that created. And so before we open for questions, I just want you all to understand, these folks have been responding and trying to respond as fast as they can to what we've been telling them is wrong. I think that's a good thing. We're doing this tonight to openly allow anyone who wishes to get into more depth of asking your own question if you wish, in order to ensure that the public knows your city is trying and the suppliers for your city are trying to deal with the concerns you brought to us. I don't see a magic wand unless they do. That's going to solve all these issues of our growth overnight. They know certain areas where we need to get better service. And I'll close with this. Competition is a wonderful thing. And I can tell you that these folks, although they respect each other, they know they're in a competitive place. They're in a competitive market. That drives a whole lot of things. And I think we're already beginning to reap some of the benefits of that in our city because of that competitive nature of them wanting to be your provider. So with that, anyone who would have a question, I'd ask you to please come to the rostrum, state your name, and give your question, and I'll keep the time if you wish. And so anyone wishes to come forward? Always somebody has to be first. Please, sir, state your name and your concern.
My name is Peter Thompson. I live in Hartford Hills over at Salt Creek and Long Hills. Our subdivision is 12 to 15 years old and is serviced in 2 lanes, or has two of the streets serviced by Fidelity. Just recently, you all had offered an offer for an extremely good internet for what I wanted, and I was ready to buy. Matter of fact, called your center, had a technician come out. Closest cable point to me was 300 yards away, and was told, sorry, we can't do it. AT&T, who is now currently my provider, has been saying in their advertisement and in their stores, UVerse is coming. I've been in my home 4 years. It's 12 years old now. UVerse hasn't shown up. I guess my question is, I appreciate the fact that you guys are working hard, and I see that. But when are we going to see when can we expect to see motion towards these things? I watched you guys put in millions of dollars of cable and was excited because I thought, we're going to get this. And then you stopped at the corner. It was frustrating. I appreciate that you can't say, we're going down this block next week. I appreciate that. But what I need to hear is definitive plans that are moving forward so the value of my home is not going to be negatively impacted by a lack of services in the next 5 years, the next 10 years. Because as we are moving forward in this society, those are critical to resale. And if I go and say, you know what, the only thing you can get here is Dish, I got a black mark. And I want to hear that. I want to be able to say, you know what, I got cable, I got UVerse, you have choices to potential buyers. It's going to increase my value of my home. It's going to increase my satisfaction as a customer, and I am an AT&T customer, not only with internet, but also with wireless. And yes, I'm one of your ones who ditched the landline. But so what I would like to know is, what does your time schedule look like? Can you give me an idea in the next 2 years, next 5 years, next 10 years? What are you going to cover areas that you're not servicing? I mean, I have DSL, which, to be honest with you, stinks.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What?
I said I have DSL with AT&T, and the speed of the service and the quality of the service is really substandard. It really is, for what we're doing today. It impacts my work. It impacts my family. Help me.
Thank you. Well, I guess you just pretty well touched on most of the things I've heard in the last couple of years. So. And certainly others have brought a similar thing. It's 2 blocks away or it's across the street. And both of them have heard about my DSL service, to be quite honest with you, and I'm not real happy with it. But so, gentlemen, ladies, whatever, however you'd like to address that.
Thank you, sir, for that very pointed question. I'll tell you that the mayor called me, and I brought with me some of my peers a few months ago to express the concerns that you just expressed publicly. The mayor said that to us several months ago, and we certainly appreciate it, knowing where some of the hot spots are here in Benton. I had a feeling tonight that I would come here, and because I couldn't tell you all exactly what you want to hear in terms of the wins and the wheres, that I might not make it out of here alive. Just know that, please know that, number one, we heard the mayor loud and clear 2 months ago, roughly, when he pointed out several locations around town. Okay, and we have heard what you just said to us about your specific area. All those are on our list. They're on our list. And we're trying to establish some priorities, and we're trying to move as quickly as we can to get you, our customer. We want to keep you as our customer, and we want to get you these services as quickly as we can. But in terms of me telling you 6 months, 5 months, a year, I can't. They just won't let me do that. But just know we're working, and we're working hard trying to get it to you as quickly as we can. And I think if these guys were standing up here, they would probably echo what I just said.
Let me echo something on that was a part of our discussions as well. I asked to see the layout plans from them for where they're going and their plans for the next year or two. Yours, as well as other areas, were a part of 5 or 6 neighborhoods that we've talked about. They can't tell you a day, but I've seen the plans and I've seen the expansion. I don't know what else to say to you. I live a lot closer to a whole lot of things than you do. And so I certainly appreciate the issue, and I think they're going to be aggressively trying to do that. Jim, would you like to respond to that as well?
Yes, I would. We've, again, Fidelity, we've built our infrastructure, to be able to serve these new areas. So with that said, a lot's been going on for us as well. Hartford Hills is definitely one of the ones, that we have on our list. I can't commit to certain time frames for certain areas, where we're going to build out our HFC architecture versus where we're going to build our fiber to the home. But I can guarantee you that a lot of people here in a lot of areas will see a lot of building in 2014 and 2015 in a lot of the unserved areas. But yes, we are familiar with your area and have looked at it. So right now we're in the process of prioritizing, seeing where it would be more feasible to build off of our HFC infrastructure and where it's feasible to put fiber in the ground. So right now, there's a lot of areas within the city that will have service in the next 2 years with us that aren't serviced today.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for the question. It pretty well summarized a whole lot of things. I can only say this too before we have the next question. You're certainly welcome to call my office, and I'll tell you more I have to the best detail I can. That's all I can tell you. Anyone else have a question or a comment they'd like to make? Certainly, sir. Please step forward. State your name and.
I'm Matt Johnson. I live over in Sterling Oaks. You said yours is 2 blocks away. Your neighbor has internet. Mine's 3 lots up. DSL stops. One house in my subdivision has cable, and that happens to be my brother-in-law. And I mean, and that's only because I think he called, it may have been you, about every day for the better part of a year. We have internet on one side of West Long Hills, and now we have, I guess y'all ran a fiber under the street for his house. So I know one of the problems with our neighborhood was when it was developed, the infrastructure wasn't put in, the copper wasn't run, the fiber wasn't run when they were developing the land. Now that you have the fiber run under the street, does that take a lot of the cost out of developing the rest of the neighborhood? Would be my question for you. And then for AT&T, it would be, I mean, I'd be happy with DSL at this point. I mean, I'm using a mobile hotspot that's bankrupting me almost. I mean, I do a lot of video production work, and I mean, if I need to upload a file to somebody, I have to go to Starbucks to do it, or do it at work. And I mean, and there's a lot of people in my neighborhood. My neighbor across the street, he works from home. My neighbor next door to me, he's a teacher who teaches online classes from his home. He has to go to Starbucks to do his as well. I know that it's like it's so close, you know. I mean, it's where you're in our neighborhood. I mean, with AT&T, my brother-in-law's lived there for 6 years. He's been told for 6 years it's coming. You know, it'll be here in 6 months. It'll be here in a year. You know, and I understand delays, but you know, our developer has been told by both companies, you know, that just it keeps getting pushed back and pushed back. Any particular reason why, or just?
No, again, for us, it's been a matter of being able to beef our infrastructure up to be able to serve the unserved areas. So yes, I'm very familiar with Sterling Oaks, and it's very close on the radar. I mean, I can't give you a specific time frame, but yes, definitely an area we're going to build to.
Ronnie, do you have any comments you wish to make regarding his point?
Well, in terms of, you know, why projects are delayed sometimes, and we go through it at AT&T sometimes, where we have a project that we plan to do, and then you have budget adjustments. And I'm not saying that has been the case in your case, and I really can't speak to why or if it's been pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. But what I'm trying to, I guess, convey this evening is that some of these locations that we're talking about, we're going to try to make them a priority and make sure those things don't happen. But now, I'm not the president of AT&T, so I can't guarantee you that it won't happen. But between me and the guys on the team there, we're going to try to make sure that some of these areas that we're talking about maintain the priority that you all would like for them to have.
Thank you. Before we go to the next question, let me say this from my perspective as well as staff and community development. Mr. Lamont Cornwell's here. Others are here. We have talked with both these companies and a few others about what we as a city can do to be better prepared to supply information about growth as well as upcoming developments and build-out dates and so on. I'm not going to tell you that we got everything right, but certainly as we plot a subdivision and we have a pretty good idea of the potential, they're talking about a build-out 2015 through 2019 of 400 homes or 200, whatever it is. We are going to do all we can to be sure that all of these folks, like our own public utilities, who are in on those discussions from day one, receive all the information they can so they can at least be in the planning loop. More homes and more stuff is coming. It's going to be greater demand, as opposed for them to find it out when you're screaming you don't have it. That makes sense? So I've asked Mr. Cornwell to work with and others, the staff. Let's improve the way we notify folks of what we think is going to happen based on seeing those plots and those plans and how many homes are going to be involved. Should we have anyone else who has a question? If so, please come forward. Yes, sir. In Sterling Oaks, certainly we've talked.
Yeah, I've got the daily double. Actually, I used to live in Hartford Hills, and I'd like to have your problems because I live in Sterling Oaks, and now I have yours. Really, I've got 4 questions, but I could ask 40, but I've got 4 questions, and really only one of them is for you guys. just quickly, we moved to Sterling Oaks 5 years ago, and it was the same thing. I was told by an AT&T tech that we were actually run out of a point that's a VRAD that's off Shenandoah. So we were run back through the woods a long way, and our internet is actually provided out of the CO not too far from here. And that's one of the reasons why we have the speed issues that we have. I think AT&T's plan at one point was that pair bonding was going to save everybody, and we were going to go from 3,000 feet to 6,000 feet, which would give us plenty of bandwidth. The technology hasn't worked out. Okay, fine. Before I get into my questions, first off, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Mattingly. I sent an email to Mayor Mattingly, and he was kind enough to actually give me a call, and he put me in contact with Mr. Dedman. And I've been pestering Mr. Dedman every 3 weeks for the last 8 months.
2 weeks, every 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, believe me, the amount of emails I wrote versus the ones I sent might have been every day. But Mr. Dedman, I appreciate you being responsive. Even though many times you couldn't tell me anything new, at least you were providing a dialogue, which was better than I can expect. The company who didn't come tonight, I'm working with them for one of my clients, and they're not quite so responsive. So I do appreciate you being responsive. But anyway, my list of questions. First off, what check do I have to write? For Fidelity, who has a fiber pop in my neighborhood, what's that cost? Because I'm just crazy enough, I might actually pay it. I can't get anybody to answer that question for me. So there's your one softball, I hope. The rest of the questions that I have really are for the city, or for you on behalf of the city. What could the city do to make it easier for you to expand? Easement access. That's probably the number one thing I can think of, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but what can the city do to make it easier to add infrastructure? Then, what is the city doing, or what has the city done, or what statutes are in place? Mayor Mattingly, you mentioned that there's a plan to go and work with the new subdivisions that are being built. Really, it was a shock to me to find out there was no cable on the ground in my neighborhood. So what is the city doing to guarantee that doesn't happen again? Because the reality is, to ask you the question, what is it going to take? What it's going to take is somebody digging. And that's going to interrupt people. You're going to have to get permission. And frankly, just between the two of us, I doubt it's ever going to happen. But I'm going to be glad if you tell me I'm wrong. And the third question that I have, that I brought up to Alderman Moore at one point, was, has there been any discussion about Benton providing its own broadband access? From what I understand from state statute, any city that's Public Service Commission runs its own electricity is by law allowed to offer its own internet service. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Gentlemen, ladies. I'll talked numerous times, so I'll just wait till you're all done.
I'll do my best to address your questions. On the build-out model, yeah, it is a huge investment, to build the neighborhood. There's 76 homes today, I think 4 lots, 80 homes total for that neighborhood. So, yes, we've done our homework on it, and actually, that I know, we're going to build a number of neighborhoods, and Sterling Oaks is one of them. And tearing up people's yards, no, of course, yeah, that's a lot easier to get in on the front end of that. When a lot of the neighborhoods were built in the city of Benton, Charter had the company back then, and at the time, Charter wasn't spending any money. The system was for sale. So, I wouldn't necessarily blame the city or anybody for that. Charter just wasn't set enough financially to be able to install cable in the neighborhood whenever those opportunities were available. But we will directional bore, whenever we do go into a built neighborhood, and we'll get with the homeowners and address any concerns or anything that's torn up during the process. And it's something we're accustomed to doing and dealing with every day. So we will make it right whenever we do build. And then you had a question about what would make it easier. The mayor, Lamont. We have construction personnel and engineering personnel that attend these planning meetings, and And, you know, I can tell you the city's doing everything that they can to get us, you know, involved, and we're going to be involved and get into the new build opportunities within the city. So actually, I think as far as the city's concerned, they're doing everything possible to make sure that these situations don't happen again. And you know, and as long as we're involved, we're going to do our best to make sure we don't leave anything unturned, especially if we can get in joint trench and save some money doing it. So, was there anything else? Hope I answered all your questions.
Thank you, Chris, for those kind words. Really appreciate that. We are really trying to, I guess, respond to what our customers or potential customers want from us. So thank you. Thank you very much. In terms of what the city can do, I think in that respect, the ball's already rolling for us. We had some issues 3, 4, 5 months ago that that Kevin and his team expressed to me that they needed some help on. I mean, permitting issues, timeliness of permits, and things like that. And I initiated a conversation with the mayor, and the mayor put us in touch with Lamont and others. And I would say that we've made much progress in getting relief. I mean, what we generally like to have are cities that want us here, you know, cities that want to work with us and want to be reasonable in their request in terms of what, you know, permits and things like that. So I'd say that the ball's already rolling in that regard. In terms of the city providing internet service, you don't want to do that. All you have to do really is read the papers about all the other cities that have tried to build a network and invested $30, $40, $50 million to build a network, and then they get a network and they don't know what to do with it. You know, they can't maintain it. And then also, I think the law says that there are 2 cities in Arkansas, or maybe, well, let me back up. North Little Rock provides their own utilities. Benton does, and there's 15. Okay. Well, just let me stop. I was not sure about what I was going to say, but just suffice to say that I really think that you all would want to give that much consideration before you even thought about doing it. There's a lot of cities that have tried it and have failed. So we want you to be our customer.
Thank you. Because these discussions have gone on so long, I can't help but say the same thing, that frustration, and I know your frustration. The cable companies that have served Benton have changed 3 times in, Jim, 8 years. This is not a criticism of Jim and his people. It's hard to maintain consistency of where you're going when you're always changing corporately and leadership. I know that's frustrating for them. I've had a chance to talk with their headquarters people, including Mr. Davis.
Yep, 90 days.
And all I can do is tell you that I ask you to pay attention to Benton. They're now the team we're working with. They're now the cable provider. They're telling me they're going to try to do that. That's a very frustrating thing, because I've been here through iteration after iteration of changed services with equipment changes and everything else. Believe me, I know. So, on the other hand, AT&T, who has been here, and I have to tell you, I am a retired employee of AT&T, and they still send me a check. But I've told Ronnie and his people how frustrating it is to deal with some of these issues and talk about AT&T with still the love and care I do, because I want to keep getting my retirement check. But they haven't changed ownership. What they have facing is a demand for service without knowing how significant it was in Benton versus other communities that got there and gave them the demand first. We're fighting that battle back, and we're going to get on competitive turf with all those other companies, with those other communities that are growing, and I think you're gonna see AT&T's presence a lot stronger and very well already, I think. Okay, do we have anyone else who has a question? If you do, please step forward. Yes, sir. Second one, you had another
Make
thought?
a point and, I guess 2 points.
Sure.
I know, and I wasn't trying to attack y'all. My builder had told me that when the subdivision was originally developed, that they approached Charter at the time, and that Charter wanted to charge my builder almost $500,000 to run the infrastructure. And so I mean, he didn't have that kind of capital to do that. So I know that's why Sterling Oaks doesn't have the existing infrastructure. I think one of the frustrating things is, I mean, I've got family that live out on North Shore, out in Alexander, that, I mean, they're about as far out of town as you can get and, you know, still be in city limits. They have Fidelity access. And here, you know, there's a lot of people that live in the city that don't. I don't know. That's one of the frustrating things to me is that, you know, you have people that live out, you know, out of town that have access and people in town that don't. But just a couple points.
Well, again, I think in that respect, the city has to be also step forward. I mean, I wasn't here then, and a lot of you weren't either. That doesn't make any difference. The problem is the problem. We're trying to do all we can now to be sure whatever's gonna happen that we know of, that's gonna be bills and so on, these folks are gonna be involved in the planning. And if we're gonna put up houses and so on, we're gonna run water, we're gonna run sewer, we're gonna run electricity, and we gotta know we're gonna plan to do the other things that people are demanding as a part of being a part of the neighborhood. I mean, you heard what the landline thing is disappearing. We're all counting on these things. I mean, I'm sitting here getting messages. You know, 20 years ago, I'm going, don't answer the phone, and then I don't get a message. I'm getting messages while we're talking, you know. So, thank you for your comment. Anyone else have a comment or a question?
Maybe you might make a comment about our Thursday morning meetings.
Oh, sure. The staff, as well as the PUC staff, which represents water, electric, sewer, and so on, meets every Thursday morning now. All department heads that work for my administration as well as public utilities. And those folks who are involved in providing these services are now being included in being a part of those Thursday morning meetings, so that they can discuss openly. If you wish to be there, you want to talk about your struggle, are you going to have the ability to put something in the ground through one of the utility right-of-ways, easements, etc. All those things can start becoming a lot more transparent, and folks are starting to take advantage of that, so that's improving as well. It's a very good communications device. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you all for coming. I don't know whether we'll probably do this. Let's get back together this fall, maybe, and let's see where we are and how things are going. Because we say we do that, then we can look at both of them and say, better get out there and get something done, huh? Right? That's what we want to do. Okay, thank you all for coming. You have a good evening.